All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. If you're here coming from Unveiled Podcast, little doc that I dropped, something that I'll be doing with Rob Fliss every now and then. And, every month we're going to be doing this little thing. I'm going to be dropping documentaries that I've worked on in the past, as well as doing these live streams. I've brought two guests on today. One guest was actually in the documentary Secret Space UFOs Fastwalkers, and that is Bob McGwier. So Bob McGwier is a scientist, technologist, and he has worked on a aerospace company that launched satellites. He actually worked with the geospatial agency. And you know what? Let's just bring him on right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's going on these days with UAP. Bob, thanks for joining us. Science Bob.
It was such a pleasure doing that video with you. Almost 2 years ago now.
I think, yeah, it was probably like 3 years ago.
Could be.
Yeah.
So my background is I have a degree and a PhD in applied mathematics with applications to physics, computer science, and engineering. My undergraduate degrees are in applied math and electrical engineering. Then I went to work for the intelligence community for 30 years. After having my first cleared job with the Department of Energy at Sandia Labs, where I got my first TS and higher clearance with a Q. Then I went to the Institute for Defense Analysis and worked for the intelligence community for 27 years. And that was really, really interesting. I had a super unusual technical career. Then I went to Virginia Tech, became the chief scientist and director of research of the Hume Center for National Security and Technology, and started Hawkeye 360 and Federated Wireless. One is the satellite company that does stuff for NRO and NGA that you mentioned, and Federated Wireless is a wireless cellular company provider, equipment provider. So it's been a really interesting, never dull and boring career. And then I retired and went whole hog into UFOs after spending 4 days with Chris Bledsoe and having his undivided attention. Wow, that was amazing.
Yes, I know that you've worked closely with Chris Bledsoe, and I hope he's doing well. And I would love to meet and interview him someday and cover his story. I know a lot of people have done that. Chris Ramsey, Area 52 Investigations, made a documentary about him on his YouTube channel. That's amazing. I was curious, I remember when we were talking in the making of this documentary that you when you worked for this intelligence agency connected to the NRO and stuff, you realized that the intelligence agencies out there, they have an ability to look through their satellite systems, their ground-based, dish systems, all of their monitoring systems around the planet at activity, right? Space-based activity. And so that could be missile launches, that could be satellite launches, that could be UAP, UFOs. So am I right in interpreting what you had told me back then, that basically they had the ability to filter out the UAPs or the UFOs from all of that listening data? This was, you and I had this conversation pre-Immaculate Constellation disclosure.
Yep.
And it sounds a lot like that's what you were describing, that there was
Of course it was. I was giving you stuff that nobody had but you. Okay, so the way you want to phrase it is, they have filtered their sensors to look for the adversaries they fear. And so what does that mean? That means underwater, it's submarines. On the surface, it's big battleships and carriers. In space, it's those things that are in orbit that might be dangerous to us. And then looking down, they're detecting missile detections. But what we knew from the moment this Chinese balloon story happened, is their matched filters, which disseminated stuff to all the agencies, was cutting out things that we might want to see in UAPs. The data is gathered. And let me assure you that I don't believe that NASIC and other people serving the government hasn't looked in those folders, because I know from my knowledge of the sensors that it has the ability to have 7x24, 365-day a year situational awareness of everything out to geostationary orbit. And if I would go to prison if I told you the size of the object they can image in orbit from multiple spectra, radio, everything. I would go to prison if I told you those abilities. So I'm not going to go, because I want our nation to have its protections for our national security. But I don't approve of the way science, engineering, medical knowledge, etc., has been classified at birth to keep it from us, while they try to compete with our peer adversaries and etc. These secrets are disastrous for all of humanity.
So, yeah, I think that's something that's going to be discussed quite in depth with the release of Dan Farah's upcoming documentary, The Age of Disclosure. People should check that out. It'll be available Friday. And I'm actually going to be discussing that documentary, doing a review with Rob from Unveiled podcast and many others. I wanted to take a second, just a beat here. We can go back to discussing space-based capabilities.
Well, let me say that I'll be at the premiere on Friday night with a bunch of people that you will have heard of. And so anything you want from me, let me know.
Amazing. Thank you, Bob. So we actually have a special guest who's joined us. I want to give a bit of backstory before I join him into the conversation. Dr. Gregory Rogers worked for NASA. He was actually, I believe, the head of the medical team, basically all the astronauts going to space, coming back. I'm going to let him explain that. But the reason why I'm kind of taking a beat to explain before I add him is that he wasn't actually supposed to be here today. Essentially what happened was he had an issue, which he had to go to the hospital. And Rob Fleece was even supposed to interview him for the Unveiled podcast, but that got canceled. And I don't know, maybe that'll get rescheduled. But Dr. Rogers was very kind last week when I was planning to do this live stream after revealing the Secret Space UFOs doc, to come on and just do a bit of a Q&A about his knowledge of UAP and all that stuff. And then this health complication happened. And I, would never pressure anybody to join while they've had a health complication, but just to show like how dedicated to, let's call it, the disclosure of this phenomenon, and how humble and noble I'd say that Dr. Gregory Rogers is. He decided to join from the hospital today to have a conversation with us and share his opinions as well as his experience regarding UAPs, that sort of cover up history, and NASA's possible involvement with it. So without further ado, I'm going to join him Do not be alarmed. He is actually joining us from a hospital. Dr. Rogers, are you? Oh, we can't hear you. You just got to turn your mic on.
You're muted.
You're muted. You might see a little mic button.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. He's not muted now.
We got you. Oh my gosh. We can't hear you, but I don't know why.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay,
we can.
That's great.
How are you feeling?
I wanted to thank you for your other appearances, and I'm so sorry that you're there. And my good, I'll be praying for your quick recovery.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much. I had a good surgeon.
I'm hopeful that you don't have to go through anything like that again, and whatever they found, they've fixed. But you're feeling good enough to do this interview from the hospital bed, which is amazing. Do they got you on any medications to make you feel so good?
Well, I'm on medications for sure, including antibiotics and some pain medicine. But
Okay.
Everything turned out well, which is why I had not planned on doing this, but I contacted you and you said, "Will you do this?" So I said, "Okay." Now there may be nurses coming in and all that kind of stuff, so we may be interrupted.
As long as you feel well enough to have a chat with us, really appreciate you coming, and it means a lot to both of us. So,
okay,
I guess you watched a bit of that documentary that was the, lead up to this Q&A. I think you saw that YouTube link.
Yes, I did.
That's over on the Unveiled podcast.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's where I used to be working and the people I used to work with. So,
so you recognize some of the people like John Blaha?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What do you think about the case with his STS mission when he was on the shuttle Discovery? He was caught sort of speaking over the communication channel to Houston that there was an alien spacecraft under observance. Like, people of the time were listening and obviously recorded that. And when that was presented to NASA at the time, as you heard from Dr. Jack Kasher, who's a professor emeritus out of what university? I can't remember what university, but he's a physics professor that took a lot of these NASA space-based encounters very seriously early on in his career. When NASA was presented with that, they said, that wasn't John Blaha. They were trying to chalk it up to like basically a hoax. Do you have any experience with that story, or are you surprised about it?
I am not surprised about it. I have heard similar stories throughout my time with NASA.
Okay. And, was that something that you commonly heard then, that astronauts saw stuff up there and either were caught commenting about it, or the public that were watching the space feed caught things and asked NASA and would deny NASA as a result, or the astronauts themselves would deny it?
Yes, that was the standard operating procedure.
But what was your
NASA did not want to acknowledge I'm out of the program now. I'm retired, so I can speak freely. But there were lots of stuff that NASA discovered that they were not about to reveal to the general public, and it not just from the International Space Station or the Space Shuttle, but all the way back to Project Gemini and even um, space base assets that was not manned.
Okay. So like unmanned satellite systems and such?
Yes.
Okay. Which Bob McGwier here has a lot of experience with. That's also why I interviewed him for this documentary, Secret Space UFOs, Fastwalkers. So,
Well, at Cape Canaveral, we also launch Atlas, Titan, and Delta missions with unmanned uh, uh,
vehicles?
space missions. Yes.
And national security missions too.
Yeah, some of them were national security missions.
Like NRO, NSA type stuff?
Um, uh, yes, I can't discuss what was on those missions, but those were the people that we were servicing at the time of the launch.
Okay, fair enough. And I know that even by investigating each STS mission when I was making this documentary, it was quite apparent that the payloads that sometimes went up in the shuttles, Discovery, Endeavour, Atlantis, Challenger, whatever, they often had classified satellites or technology they were releasing into space once they got up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Dr. Rogers, can you talk a bit about your background just for folks that, don't
Okay.
know who you are? I know you've spoken on many podcasts,
Sure.
Jesse Michaels and all kinds of stuff, but you were chief medical
Yeah.
guy.
Literally all over the world. Yesterday, at the time I was doing surgery, I was supposed to be on a podcast with a guy from Chile. I couldn't contact him, so hopefully he'll learn about this, and I owe him a podcast. Um, uh, but uh, I was chief of aerospace medicine at the 45th Space Wing. So I was the chief flight surgeon for Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Patrick Air Force Base, the Eastern Space and Missile Center, and also the uh, Eastern Missile Range. And then through DDMS, the Department of Defense Manned Spaceflight Support Office, I also supported manned spaceflight operations out of Kennedy Space Center. And I supported 31 space shuttle missions.
Wow. So that was from like what year to what year?
From 89 through 95.
Okay. Very, experienced career, basically. That's a decade of experience. And while you were there, one of the quite famous things you've gone public with is that you saw a parked UAP or UFO that you believe was a like Air Force reverse engineered product.
It was a reverse engineered product that was created for the Air Force, but I believe it was actually operated by uh, one of the defense contractors. But I'm not going to discuss which contractors did things like that. But that was what I saw.
Okay. And it was like a classic disc shape or saucer
Yes,
shape?
it was disc shaped, approximately 20 feet in length. Um, the surface was gleaming pearl white. There were no seams, rivets, or anything else on it. Now, then, because I believed it was a research vehicle, they had painted um, vertical black rectangles at the 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock position, and had painted horizontal rectangles from the 12:30 to 2:30, 3:30 to 5:30, 6:30 to 8:30 position, and also the 9:30 to now then vehicle. There was a rounded dome, a mast that was protruding, and the mast was hooked up to three umbilicals. And I believe this was how the vehicle was being operated at the time of my witnessing it.
Very incredible stuff. Do you think this was a manned object or it was unmanned?
I believe it was unmanned. Um, I saw people around it before the operations and while it was being operated, but I believe that the reason they had umbilicals connected to the spacecraft was because it was still being tested, and uh, they did not have anyone aboard.
I'm curious what year this was that this happened, that you
Uh,
walked into.
that was 1992.
Okay, so you had another 3 years to be very quiet about what you experienced.
Yes, and then I remained quiet even after that. I did not even tell my wife for 15 years, but I did not disclose it publicly for 33 years. I retired in April of this year, and on the 4th of May, I came forward to present um, my story as a whistleblower on May 4th. And since that time, it has literally gone all over the world. It was on Newsweek, New York Post, and all kinds of other places. I've been on podcasts, literally around the world. And as I mentioned yesterday, I was supposed to be one from Chile, but you know, while I was in surgery, I was not able to make that podcast, but I'll make it up to him.
Well, look, I admire your strength through this health condition and just your ability to just stand up and keep talking about this issue. Obviously, you're passionate about it and you know there's truth to it. And, it's a really murky subject because there's, in my opinion, a lot of disinformation out there. And then there's people like you that I wholeheartedly agree with and believe in. So, thank you for coming forward. I wanted to maybe segue.
Well, the reason I came forward was because other people have come forward before me, and so they have paved the way, and so I did what I did because they have done what they did. Um, People like Commander Fravor, Ryan Graves, David Grush, all of these guys have come forward first, and then I came forward next. And so hopefully after me, there will be other people who come forward with their stories.
Yeah, I appreciate all of them. And, we just got to get to the facts and get, if there's, anything that can go public that can prove everything, that's out there.
Well, you know, one of
Amazing.
the things about this is that it's been public for generations. We can go back to 3,000 years ago. Um, there were people in the Bible who saw UFOs. There were people in Central America, South America, India, who were also seeing the same things, and they described it. Now, then, they didn't use the modern descriptions, but they used the only terms that they knew how. For instance, when Elijah uh, went to heaven, they said that he went there in a fiery chariot. Well, the fastest thing they knew was a chariot, but I don't think many chariots were on fire back then, and I don't think they were routinely carrying people to space. So if this was something going on at that time, you know, I often thought about that if I was watching a space shuttle and we were launching a crew into space. If those people had been at Kennedy Space Center when I was, what would they have described that as? Well, they certainly wouldn't have discussed it as a space shuttle, but they would have discussed it as something.
Are you convinced? Do you guys think, you know, I've got Bob who worked in intelligence and worked in the space industry, launching satellites and working with the intelligence agencies that were active in that kind of work. And then Dr. Rogers, you were actually working for NASA, launching a lot of stuff as well, secret and public at the same time. But
The Air Force and NASA.
Air Force and NASA. But there's all this talk about a secret space program. And, you know, there's, in my mind, two different versions of that. There's a secret space program that people believe there's, like, you know, reptilians and Buck Rogers type stuff happening around the planet. I made a documentary called Dark Alliance that kind of highlights some of that stuff and the controversy around it. But then there's also this secret space program idea that we have conventional technologies like satellites, spacecraft, you know, reverse engineered UFO type activity. And those things are being launched and carried out in secret, hidden from the public. And we're only to believe that it's just like, you know, the shuttle mission type stuff that's happening up there. What are your thoughts? Maybe I'll go to Bob for a second about this, because we haven't heard from you in a little while.
Okay, sure.
But
go ahead.
what do you guys think about when you hear the secret space program rumors, and, you know, what's a reality to you and what's not?
Okay, so when I first kind of got into this, and I was heavily associated with Richard Dolan, I was in his group, if you will, when he wrote the secret space program monograph. And so I read it and I went, I don't know. But as I got deeper into this, after I retired, became friends with Chris Bledsoe and others, I befriended people who live in southwestern United States. And today, right now, I could go and buy an airplane ticket, fly to a city in the Southwest, and that night go out and watch activity coming in and out of an identified deep underground military bases where what looks like reverse engineered vehicles are flying with United States helicopters. And how do I know they're United States helicopters? Because Apache attack helicopters are not sold to private individuals or to companies. So I I can go there and see them. And so I have zero doubt we have a secret space program.
All right, and Dr. Rogers, what's your theories on a secret space program? How would you sort of articulate that to the public?
Well, first of all, the space shuttle was not the first reusable spacecraft. The X-15 was. That Neil Armstrong actually got his astronaut wings in the X-15 program before he joined NASA, and so a lot of people don't realize things like that. So there are documented evidence of this kind of stuff, but then there are other things that are not documented and are not being freely discussed.
And so do you think that's like secrecy within NASA as a public agency, or additionally to that, outside of NASA with third-party military contractors like Lockheed or Northrop Grumman? There's also some vehicles that they've built that are being flown by Air Force personnel or something secretly into space.
That's not something that I really feel comfortable discussing in this situation.
I want to provide
But
some situational awareness and context. Go ahead, Dr. Rogers. Sorry to interrupt.
oh, no problem. But the thing is, if nothing was there, it's easy to say nothing is there. To say that I can't discuss it is a whole different matter.
Yeah, I totally understand security oaths and non-disclosure agreements with your Air Force background. This is a national security issue, and I wouldn't want to, mess anything up or get you in trouble. Let's just say that. So,
Well,
I really
there's also the aspect of when we have secret stuff, we may have skills and abilities that we don't want our opposition to know. So some of it is kept secret specifically for national security purposes.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You don't want Russia, China to know that you're flying a, anti-gravity type craft into space and spying on them or something like that. It's wild. I mean, this type of thing in the whole disclosure of this reality, it messes with the world
Well,
that
there's all kinds of other aspects of it that people don't think about. If we discover a technology that is greatly advanced and we give that technology to a space contractor and they start making money on it, they are not going to want other agencies within our government knowing that they are operating it. So it goes so deep into so many different areas that the average person is not really going to comprehend it. Can you still hear me?
I was muted. Sorry. So
Oh,
what do you
okay.
think about this? And thank you. We can still hear you. We heard everything you just said. What are your thoughts, Bob, in terms of the secrecy and why this can't come out? Do you guys actually think disclosure is ever really going to come from the military and the government as a joint group? I know that a lot of the whistleblowers are pushing for that, especially with this documentary coming out, Age of Disclosure. But is that really, if this is such a national security issue, is that going to push the DOD, or now called the Department of War, to actually make any meaningful change and release this information to the public? Can't hear you, Bob. Sorry. Might have to connect your mic again. All right. Well, we'll go to Dr. Rogers. What do you think on that, if you don't mind commenting for now?
Okay. Uh, uh, these are realities. It's not supposed anymore. We have plenty of evidence of this, and so you look at what Congress has done, and they have called uh, people and technologies for disclosure, and they have done part of this. The only problem is that there's a whole lot more that could be available, but has not been made available. And I'm in the International UFO Bureau, and that's based out of Oklahoma City. And Jimmy Carter was governor of Georgia, and he saw a UFO. And so he reported it to the International UFO Bureau in Oklahoma City. And so he promised, as he was running for president, that if he was made president, he would release all the secrets. When, sorry about that, I dropped the phone. But when he became president, he could not release everything. So it was even beyond his ability as president to disclose all of these things.
And we've got Science Bob back with us, Bob McGwier. I believe your mic is working now.
It is working. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Okay,
can.
great.
Perfect.
So yeah, I wanted to give important context and personal knowledge. So your question earlier was posed, will the DOD do? And that is based upon a regular but completely false understanding of how things work. So this program was begun under the auspices of the Department of Energy under the Atomic Secrets Act. And almost surely the major supervisors work in nonprofit corporations, which are federally funded research and development centers that are operated by the Air Force and DOE, National Labs and Aerospace Corporation. That's where the leadership is going to lie. The corporations managed by them, none of them, not one of them, will have all of the information. The way waived, unacknowledged special access programs are run, they're run out of the White House from the National Security Council. They may be giving supervisory stuff to one thing, but the person at the top is the White House, the president. Okay, so nothing is going to happen until the president and Rubio, the national security advisor, they consult with each other and decide the president can order a release. If that doesn't happen, you can forget about it. My opinion, therefore, is we will not have what people think of as government disclosure. We'll hear whistleblowers. And so it is my opinion, and all the work I'm doing out here for free and for everyone is building a solid base of code and sensors like the Tedesco brothers. I'm doing it differently, but like them, where we can gather our own evidence. And I'm also working with Skywatcher as an advisor, but ultimately they will use probably my stuff and others to go gather data. We have to prove it for ourselves. And if we only got one admission, the president says, we're not alone. We've been visited. We know about it. And that's all I can say, because we're competing against Russia, China, and others. And therefore, we're not going to say anything. That's all I can tell you. And if they just did that, it would make a huge difference.
Yeah, and I would add, if he also signs into effect a whistleblower protection, a real, authentic executive order to protect whistleblowers, as was recently stated by what's his name, who Eric.
Oh, no. Oh, Eric Davis.
Eric Davis.
Eric Davis is a scientist who is wants to who won't talk without a whistleblower protection.
Right. He doesn't want to get whacked or thrown in jail.
And I can explain that too. The security oaths and the security administration and the contract administration is done by private corporations. They have a government supervisor and a government security, but all of the stuff that's management, the lawyers, the security people, they are private contractor employees. And you do not want to sign one of those non-disclosure agreements. You give away 100% of your rights. You forego due process, and you can be subjected to whatever sanctions are in the paper you sign. And they are awful.
Okay. I believe it. So, coming back to space-based UFOs and that type of information being held from the public, what are like your opinions, Dr. Rogers first, and then Bob, on what those UFOs are? So Dr. Rogers talks about his experience working for NASA and seeing one of these reverse engineered Air Force vehicles, basically, that was a UAP, or a UAV, a unidentified aerial vehicle or something. So do you think that a lot of this stuff that was recorded during space missions was our activity, like our secret space program and our reverse engineered test flights? Or do you think some of this stuff is not human activity and is possibly the fabled extraterrestrial or non-human intelligence, sightings that people have discussed throughout the decades?
Okay, first of all, I was not able to hear what Bob said, so I don't know about that. But the technology that it takes to make some of these things happen are beyond our ability. I flew helicopters, T-38s, and F-16s. Anytime a human spacecraft, aircraft, or any other vehicle breaks the sound barrier, we're going to produce sonic booms. The UFOs that we have known for years they might be stationary, and all of a sudden they zip off at 10,000 miles an hour. Somewhere between being stationary and 10,000 miles an hour, they went through um, the sound barrier, and they did not produce sonic booms. So they're working with a type of physics we don't understand.
I agree with that. So let me tell you the things that I have seen. So right over here, out that window, is my deck, and standing on that deck in an aircraft exclusion zone that surrounds
Can you still hear me?
Aberdeen Proving Grounds.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Aberdeen
Um,
Proving Grounds.
uh,
I saw a
we
triangle
have
fly over.
videos of UAPs that are flying in the air, and they go underwater. We can't do this. So even though we are trying to create our technology based on their technology, I believe that the vast majority of this is beyond human means. Um, when I flew the F-16, um, it was a 9G aircraft because that's the most G forces that the pilots could handle. But the aircraft was actually capable of flying between like 12 and 14 Gs. The spacecraft that we are observing with UAPs are flying hundreds and thousands of G forces when they make these extraordinary maneuvers. We do not have the human technology, the space science, the material science to even begin to approach the capabilities that they have demonstrated to us. So I'll let that go. Actually, I uh, appreciate you guys having me on, but I need to go ahead and get off the air. So I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. I wish you a very speedy health recovery, and we're sorry that you've had to endure this, but honestly, you're a great man, and I look forward to chatting with you more in the future. Godspeed.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And it was good to speak with you, Bob.
See you,
Thank
Dr.
you,
Rogers.
Dr. Rogers.
Are you feeling poorly? What's going on?
All right. Dr. Rogers is in the hospital for people that do not.
I think you should drop him off because that's a private conversation.
Oh, yes. Let me remove him. I was about to say, he's about to hang up, but he joined us from his hospital bed. For people that have joined late or don't understand what was going on there, if you go back to the starting of the stream, you'll sort of see that. But
well, I wanted to add, so the especially because his remarks were quite cogent and they're important. So standing on the deck right outside that window, it's the backyard of my home, and I was standing on it with my Psionics camera and some other stuff, and I'm in the exclusion zone for all aircraft around Aberdeen Proving Ground. And so when I have helicopters that fly over my house about 100 feet above it, illegally as heck, regularly. That's number one. And that, I think, is humans. But I saw a perfect 3 lights in the corner triangle fly over my home, make a hard turn, and head directly for Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And so to me, that is almost surely some operated by us or us jointly with others, or it wouldn't be going to Aberdeen Proving Grounds unless they're doing reconnaissance. But I assure you, if an aircraft goes toward Aberdeen Proving Grounds where they have an Air Force base and an airport and all sorts of defensive air capabilities, they'd shoot it down. So that has to be something that they knew were coming and had approved to come, or they were operating, etc. And that's not the only triangle I've seen around here. I've seen them on Highway 40, which goes right through Aberdeen. Something's going on here. And it was after that that I arranged to go to the desert Southwest and look at what I am now convinced is a deep underground military base. My opinion, especially given Dr. Rogers and others' input, is I know humans are involved because those military vehicles are there. I don't know what is inside the craft. My hope is, at a minimum, it's a joint thing, because I don't want non-human intelligence beings flying in and out of things with our military and we're not on board like a pilot. So that we need our pilots in there to make sure they behave. You get the idea.
Yeah. So you think there's a bit of a mix of both, but let's switch over really quick here. Just conversation about Age of Disclosure. That is coming out this Friday. People are super hyped.
Very hyped.
Good friend in the UFO community, Stephen Bassett. He published yesterday the list of people that are going to be included in that. But it's not a complete list, because he says and more at the end. But Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Senator Mike Rounds, Congresswoman Paulina, Congressman Andre Carson, Congressman Tim Burchett, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, Mike Gallagher, former congressman, General Jim Clapper.
Lieutenant General Clapper was the director of national intelligence.
Right. DNI. Commander David Fravor, Admiral Tim Gallaudet, friend of mine. I've spoken with him in a previous documentary. Captain Robert Salas, who, famously is part of the Missile Man silos that went down, and he was, that whole UFO encounter happened there. Colonel Carl Nell, Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, Lieutenant Ryan Graves, Lou Elizondo, Jeffrey Nusatelli, Jay Stratton, Christopher Mellon, Brett Federson, Mike Gold, Jim Semivan, Chris Miller, Chaz King, Gary Nolan, Hal Puthoff, Eric Davis, Travis Taylor. Pretty incredible, all those people. I've never heard of Brett Federson. Who's that?
I don't know. I didn't know he was in it.
Okay. Do you know who Chaz King is?
I don't know him either.
Chris Miller.
Yeah, Chris Miller's in aviation, but I don't remember the details.
Okay. And so one of these people obviously stands out above more, Lieutenant General Jim Clapper. And I've seen, there's a lot of political conversation happening on X all the time right now. Epstein files. I pray that stuff comes out in its full quality, no redactions, so we can just see who is who.
Well, there are going to be intelligence things that are marked out. Now, we hope they don't expand that to protect individuals that shouldn't be protected.
Yes.
But that's going to be a temptation. But they are going to do redactions because it has top secret classified information in it.
Yes. And so I saw within the sort of political rhetoric and people attacking each other from the left and right, somebody said that Jim Clapper is an enemy. I'm assuming that this was the right going after him because they think he's threatening Donald Trump in the past. Was that Does that seem accurate, or
No, he
what's
don't know. Well, Jim Clapper
yeah?
is a national treasure, a patriot, and he like many others before him were afraid of what Donald Trump was going to do in office, and so he criticized Donald Trump because, frankly, he did not want him being elected, and so Clapper is against Trump. That doesn't mean he's not a patriot. That doesn't mean he's perfect either. He made a mistake before testifying before Congress, to which he has admitted and written a statement saying, "Look, I messed up. Here's what I did wrong, and I apologize." I mean, that's the sign of somebody with character, to admit an error.
Yeah,
And
of course. Apologize, try to change your behavior, and move forward.
but by the time that came out, he had already retired.
Yeah. What was the mistake, if you don't mind me asking?
He was testifying about National Security Agency collection. And the thing that look, I'll go over it briefly because that's not what we're about. But NSA has an umbrella circling the globe, vacuuming in everything it can in the way electronic communications, etc., into a vast, huge data mine. Okay, now they don't look at everything. They can't possibly look at everything. They don't have enough compute power to look at everything. All these crazy stories about triggers on words, that is just horse crap. I know because I worked on it and worked there. Okay, so
That's the NSA, right?
yeah, it's NSA. They vacuum everything, then they store it someplace. Collection is when any officer of the United States government or their vetted contractors can reach in with a query and pull out the database, but they have got to have legal orders to do so. If it's a U.S. person, it requires a warrant from a FISA court. So he got caught in this dilemma of the difference between we record it and we listen to it. We record it, absolutely. We couldn't do intelligence work if we didn't. But most of it sits there idle and is never looked at. And so when we need it, we operate legally under what's called UCIT 18, executive orders, etc., not to spy on U.S. persons. If they do, and they do it illegally, they get in trouble. We've had times when they got in trouble. But I can tell you right now, from my own eyes and my own ears, I have seen people fired for doing the wrong thing, losing their security clearance, and they're out of a job.
Okay, good to know. Is there anybody else that you think's missing from that list that you know is going to be in the Age of Disclosure documentary?
Well, you forgot to mention what to me is likely one of the most important people involved in all of that, and that's Jay Stratton.
Okay.
Jay Stratton was the person who was appointed back when all of this kind of stuff with a parallel investigation funded by Harry Reid and several of the senators out of their secret slush fund to do classified work on demand. He ran the program for the United States government. He was in charge. He hired David Grush and ordered him to go find the secret program, which David Grush did.
Okay. What do you think about, oh yeah, I realized David Grush is not on that list. Why is David Grush not in the documentary?
Because David when the documentary was filmed, his case was still before the Office of Inspector General for the Director of National Intelligence, for the intelligence community. So he was not able legally to talk.
Okay. What do you think about, people like are from the opposite side of this conversation that say this is all, hooey, a hoax. People like Stephen Greenstreet, do you think he's controlled opposition from the DOD, hired to sort of like go after people like Jay Stratton, Lou Elizondo, anybody that speaks about UAPs or UFO activity and secret special access programs within the intelligence and the military that are dealing with this phenomenon? Or do you think he's just like a sloppy reporter that wants to be, the bad guy that's just kind of going after people personally instead of following that story properly?
So there have been analogs to him before. Philip J. Klass worked for Aerospace Aviation Week and Space Review, and he was on the payroll. So an analog of Greenstreet has existed in the past, but Greenstreet is not as classy an act as Klass was. And so I am unable to discern and do not know from personal information whether there's personal animus and emotional difficulty or he's on the payroll. All I know is he is unchangeably opposed to what's going on now. And I know to me, he's an unethical and dishonorable reporter. And I'll give you the one case that shows this. He asked Brandon Fugel, could he go to Skinwalker Ranch and do a story? He made sweet love and patting on the back. Everybody treated him well. Took all his film, camped out on the ridge above the ranch, and then ran off and wrote a hit piece on Fugel and all the ranch. It was awful and shows everything one needs to know about this person's ethics and character to me.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, like, we need to have serious conversations on both sides. Sometimes there's hoaxes, for real. And I'm obviously public about my beliefs on things like the Nazca mummies and the bugosphere. I feel like that's just part of a entertainment industry within the UFO UAP community that's trying to spin up all this speculation and interest in those things and take our minds off of what else is going on. Look, I believe there's UFOs and UAPs, unacknowledged special access programs and possible non-human intelligence interacting with our planet and us secretly. And I do believe that, there's orb-looking UFOs that have been caught on camera throughout history and experienced by experiencers. But it just seems like that stuff is being spun up to take advantage of the community that's so hungry for more information. And they're like, well, look over here. We've got that information for you. What are your thoughts on like things like the bugosphere or like the Nazca mummies? I don't want...
So the Nazca mummies, to me, I believe Gary, Nolan, and others have done a pretty good job on that. The bugosphere, I have no personal knowledge. I just don't. And so, but this business of carbon dating, how do you carbon date metal? So there must have been something on it that's organic, but how do we know when that, but the carbon dating works on the day God created the carbon. So, and then it got on the bugosphere. We don't know when. It could have been put on last week from somebody else mishandling something that was 100,000 years old. We just don't know. We are not privy to the scientific process that needs to be followed to do that kind of analysis. And but some of the stuff I've seen about the bugosphere, including these fracking translations and all that stuff, it's complete baloney to me. Some of the three-fingered things that are now in a university and in a lab in Mexico, that's been tainted by Jaime Maussan. However, recently there have been scientific papers and interesting observations that says, this is something we can investigate. That's number one. Number two, at Skinwalker Ranch, two things have been shown on that show, which has me going, that needs to be investigated. What's one of them? You know the old story about the wolf with a family that lived there? Okay, so they were going across the property and went into the stream that runs through the ranch, and they found this carcass hanging in a tree. They took it out and handed it to a fully qualified scientist to analyze the thing. And he came back and went, I don't know, but this is a dire wolf, which we thought was extinct for centuries, thousands of years. We thought that was extinct. That's number one. I'm going, wow. And the anomalies they're showing on there, I'm sorry. They're showing time dilation, bending of light through something that's impossible. They have evidence of glowing objects entering a mesa and coming out of the mesa, even though that's solid ground, et cetera. In other words, there's enough evidence out there that says to me, we need a scientific investigation into all of this that does not involve hilarious comments and done in a way that will allow the data that's gathered to be published in a peer-reviewed journal. That has strict protocols that have to be followed. If you don't follow those protocols, it's just another story.
Yeah, and I will say, back to, so first of all, the Bugosphere and Nazca Mummies is the same cartel. It's the same entertainment group that's promoting both of those things. So you guys look into it. These are facts. But, on top of that, you did mention Dr. Gary Nolan, and I really he even talked about it on Joe Rogan. He talked about it on many occasions with different, Vinny Adams with the Disclosure Team, that he was approached by the Nazca Mummies people, and he saw some certain things about it that just looked off right away, right? And when he said, well, the only way I'll do this is if it can be done in a proper peer-reviewed study, he was rejected. And that kind of says that says a lot, right? So, for example, another cadaver or body that was claimed to be an alien in the past was the Atacama mummy, right? Which Dr. Greer's team with Michael Mazzola, same folks, brought forward. And he did a proper peer-reviewed study on that, which means it's a closed setting at the university with separate scientists taking this body through the paces and scientifically testing where it's from, how old, things about the bones, the skin, whatever. This is all over my...
They analyzed the DNA. They analyzed the DNA, found it was human, but had ugly mutations.
That's right. They ruled out that it was an alien cadaver.
It's a human with mutations.
And there was a whole documentary promoting that, saying this is an alien, right? That was called Sirius, I think, which was one of the earlier Greer films. But that whole camp got really mad at Dr. Nolan for ruling out that it was an alien body, and they claimed conspiracy and said he was a liar, and tried to change his words after that and say he admitted that it was an alien body, all this stuff, which he's cleared the record on that. But this is what happens. right? And this is another installment of that sort of fable, but in 2025, right? And I think you can look out there and see all the evidence that these are tampered with bodies, right? And not only the bigger ones like Maria are human bodies that were found fully, but then tampered with. And it really, there's such a horde, there's such a group of people that are behind supporting this to a fault, that it's like this mind virus that invades people and does not allow them to use deductive reasoning or logic to rule out that this could be an elaborate hoax. And
Well,
it's too bad.
most people do not understand the scientific process, and so they are not willing to exhibit sufficient patience while that process goes forward. Let me give you an example with Nolan. Nolan is in charge of the team doing scientific analysis on the terabytes of data that Skywatcher has gathered. And Nolan has said, I will be in this only if we do it right. The science must be done right, so the data must be sequestered from all public access until such time as the science team has reached its conclusions, written a paper that is accepted in a peer-reviewed journal for publication. So until that happens, don't expect to see the data. After it happens, Skywatcher will share that data with anyone on the planet.
Well, I'm curious about all this stuff. I'm going to keep following it and doing my own thing in regards to reporting and documenting and just commenting. But I really appreciate you joining us today. And I really didn't expect Dr. Rogers to join us from the hospital. That was a huge
That was an honor to be on with him, I got to tell you.
Yeah. And if people are curious about an organization that he's part of, it's called the International UFO Bureau. They're actually a really old organization that's got headquarters in, what the heck is the state? I'm like having a horrible time today remembering everything. Oklahoma and Oklahoma City. And it was started with the help of actually President Jimmy Carter, because he wanted to launch into investigations of UAP, UFOs, as they were called then, after he had his own genuine UFO sighting, which is out there. You can look into that. People don't realize not every president has seen a UFO before, but he did. And so, I think we're going to see a lot more stuff coming out of the International UFO Bureau. They're going to be doing a conference next year, and they're going to have a whole slate of really interesting speakers. People should kind of, follow that and follow Science Bob McGwier here. He's on X, very active there. He's on.
I want to plug something if you don't mind.
Please.
So I am in the process of putting up wide open, free source code. Anybody can take it and use it like they want to under the MIT license of things that show all satellites that are in your sky. That's number one. Number two, show them at night if they're illuminated in a way you know where to look. That does too. What am I trying to do with that? I'm trying to prevent people from calling everybody and their brother when Starlinks fly over right after they've been launched in what looks like a train of UFOs. All right, so that's number one. Number two, I'm putting together a program that will suck in from FlightAware and Flight Radar 24 all the aircraft that are over your head, put them on a map so you can know what you're looking at, show them on another graphic the sky and where they are in the sky, And that way you can know, no, that's not a UFO. That's a United Airlines jet. Now, it will not do secret military aircraft. Okay. But it's just so many people mistake regular things for this. And so I'm doing this set of stuff. I'm giving away. Anyone can use it and play with it. People will be able to run it on their computers and their phones.
Yeah, that's amazing. I look forward to seeing that. I'd love to test it out in the field, actually. Be interesting to see how many unidentified or sort of maybe government, military craft are flying overhead at that time. Thanks again for everybody that's joined. This is something I'm going to try and do twice a month. And Bob, you're more than welcome to join us again to comment on news and all kinds of issues that are going on.
Well, tell you what I want to do. I want to see pictures of that brand new, beautiful baby. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I do have a baby son now with us.
Congratulations.
Yeah, he's a real blessing. I'm very, very happy about that. And it's changed my life for the better. Thank you. But yeah, guys, definitely stay in touch. Feel free to add on X, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you're watching from. And take care. Be vigilant. Be good to each other. And try not to fall for a hoax. Much love.